My name is Ngozi Okorie, wife of Governor Chuka Okorie. That morning started like every other day we had an event. I woke up early before him, ironed his white agbada, and laid it on the bed. The sun was already hot, and I remember telling him, "Chuka, please drink enough water, oh. This heat today no be small one." He only smiled and said, "My first lady, I'm fine. People are waiting for me." That was my husband, always strong, always smiling, even when I knew he was tired. We entered the convoy around 10 a.m. The roads were full of people waving flags and shouting his name. "Our governor! Our governor!" They kept screaming. My heart was full of pride that day. You know that kind of pride that makes your chest rise? Yes, that one. I looked at him beside me and thought, God really blessed me with a good man. When we reached the new hospital we built, the sun was blazing, but the people didn't care. Drummers were playing, school children were dancing, women were waving wrappers. Everybody was happy. Chuka climbed the stage, smiling and waving like a king. He started his speech thanking the people for believing in his government. He talked about how this hospital will help the poor and how every child deserves care. I was clapping proudly. Then it happened. At first, I saw his hand shake a little. I thought it was just the heat. But before I could even blink twice, his voice stopped. His smile froze. Then he staggered forward and fell like someone pushed him. The microphone hit the ground with a loud sound. People gasped. Some shouted, "Jesus!" I ran straight to him. My head tie almost fell off. "Chuka! Chuka!" I screamed, shaking him. His face looked pale, his eyes rolled back. The security men rushed to carry him. Everything became noisy. People crying, cameras flashing, everybody trying to see what happened. Before I knew it, we were inside the ambulance. My heart was beating fast. I kept holding his hand, whispering, "Please wake up, Biko, please." But he didn't answer. When we reached the hospital, the doctors pushed him inside the emergency room. They didn't allow me in. I just sat outside, crying and praying. Every minute felt like 1 hour. People started gathering outside. Journalists, too. Some of his party members came, asking useless questions. I wanted to shout at them to leave me alone. That night was the longest night of my life. I stayed on the hospital bench, still wearing the same outfit from the morning. I didn't care. I just wanted him to open his eyes and talk to me again. By morning, the news had already spread everywhere. I saw it on my phone. Governor Okorie collapses at public event. Videos of me crying beside him were already online. I felt empty. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't even know if my husband was still alive. All I could do was pray and wait. That night, after the collapse, I didn't sleep at all. I just sat there in the hospital corridor, cold and shaking. The white light above me was too bright, but I didn't even care. Every sound, the footsteps of nurses, the squeak of a trolley, the soft hum of machines made my heart jump. They didn't let me see Chuka. One of the nurses kept saying, "Madam, please, the doctors are still attending to him." I begged and begged. "I just want to see his face, please, even if it's 1 minute." But they refused. When the doctor finally came out in the early morning, his face told me everything before his mouth even opened. I stood up quickly. "Doctor, how is my husband? Is he awake?" He sighed and said quietly, "He is alive, madam, but he is very weak. We are running more tests." "Tests? What kind of tests? What is wrong with him?" I asked. He looked left and right before speaking again. "Madam, can we talk privately?" He led me to a small office and closed the door. My heart was beating like a drum. Then he said something that made my legs weak. "Madam, your husband has HIV." For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. "What did you just say?" He repeated it slowly, as if I didn't hear him the first time. "Governor Okorie has HIV. From our checks, he must have known for some years now. He has been taking his drugs secretly." I grabbed the table to stop myself from falling. No. That can't be true. You must have mixed his result with another person's own." The doctor shook his head gently. "I'm sorry, madam. The results are clear. He probably kept it from you because he didn't want the public to find out." I sat down and stared at the wall. I couldn't even cry. It felt like a heavy load landed on my chest. I started asking myself a million questions. How long has he known? Why didn't he tell me? Where did it even come from? When I left the office, the world outside suddenly felt strange. The nurses walking around looked like strangers. The walls of the hospital felt like they were closing in on me. I wanted to shout, but my voice refused to come out. I entered Chuka's room quietly. He was lying there with tubes in his hand, sleeping like a child. I sat beside him and held his fingers. "Why didn't you tell me, Chuka?" I whispered. "After all we have shared, why did you face this alone?" Tears filled my eyes, but I wiped them quickly because I didn't want anyone to see. Outside the hospital window, I could hear the sound of reporters shouting, asking questions. Is the governor dead? What's his sickness? Is it stroke? I wanted to scream at them to leave us alone. They didn't know the real battle happening inside that room. Later that evening, the deputy governor came to visit. He wore a fake, sad face and kept saying, "We are praying for him, Ma." But the state must go on. I could see through his act. He was already thinking about how to take over. When he left, I sat back and looked at my husband again. I felt angry, sad, and confused all at once. I wanted to hate him for hiding something so big. But when I saw his chest rising slowly as he slept, I felt pity more than anger. I understood what fear can do to a man, especially a man the whole world is watching. That night, as the clock ticked and the hospital grew quiet, I made a small promise to myself. Whatever happens, I will stand by him. But this secret will not stay hidden forever. By the third day, the hospital gate looked like a market. Reporters, party members, and curious people all gathered outside, holding microphones and cameras. They shouted questions whenever they saw me. "Madam, what is wrong with the governor? Is it stroke? Is it poison?" I stopped going through the main gate because I couldn't bear it anymore. I started using the back door. Every time I walked through the corridor to see Chuka, I kept my head down, pretending not to hear the whispers from nurses and visitors. Everybody wanted to know what was happening to the governor. Inside, my husband was still weak. He could talk small now, but his voice was soft, like that of someone who had fought a long war. I would feed him slowly, clean his face, and try to smile even when my heart was heavy. "Ning," he said one morning, his voice shaking. "Don't tell anyone, please. I beg you." I looked at him quietly. "Chuka, how long have you been hiding this?" He sighed and turned his face away. "About 5 years now. I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could handle it." "Handle it?" I almost shouted, but my voice cracked. "Handle it by lying to me? We are husband and wife. How could you carry such a big burden alone?" He didn't answer. He just stared at the ceiling, a tear rolling down the side of his face. I felt my anger melt into pain. I sat beside him and held his hand. "I'm not angry anymore," I whispered. "But we can't continue hiding this. It's not right." He squeezed my fingers weakly. "Ngozi, you don't understand. If people find out, everything I worked for will scatter. They will call me names. The opposition will use it against us. Please, let it die with me." His words cut deep. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the voices outside the hospital shouting questions. The camera clicks, the phone calls from party members. Some of them already started calling me secretly, trying to find out the truth. One even said, "Madam, if the governor is sick beyond recovery, we must plan ahead." That was when I knew they didn't care about him, only about power. The next morning, one of the nurses came running to me, breathing fast. Madam, there is a rumor online. They say the governor is HIV positive." My heart nearly stopped. "What? Who told them?" She shook her head. "We don't know, Ma, but it's spreading fast." I rushed to my phone and opened social media. There it was. A long post from an anonymous account claiming that a popular governor in the East is battling HIV. They didn't call his name, but everybody could guess. My hands began to shake. My phone didn't stop ringing. Journalists, friends, even relatives were calling. I turned it off. When I entered Chuka's room again, he was sitting up, his face pale. "Ngozi," he said softly, "I told you this would happen. They will destroy me." I sat beside him, tears running down my face. "No one will destroy you, my love. Not when I am still here." But deep inside, I knew the truth. The storm had already started, and there was no hiding from it anymore. That night, as I watched him sleep, I made a decision I didn't even fully understand yet. If the world wanted to talk, let them talk. But when the time comes, they will hear the truth from my own mouth. By the next morning, everything had scattered. The news had left social media and entered television and radio. Every station was carrying one version or another. Is Governor Okorie living with HIV? First Lady disappears from public eye. Government house in confusion. It was everywhere. My phone would not stop ringing. Some called to ask if it was true. Others called just to gossip. Even church members were sending voice notes saying, "Sister Ngozi, we are praying for you and your husband." But I could hear pity hiding behind their voices. The deputy governor started behaving like he was already in charge. He came to the hospital again, wearing a new suit and acting important. "Madam, you need to control the press," he said. "People are getting angry. If the rumor continues, it might cause unrest. Maybe you should make a statement to deny it." I looked him straight in the eye. "Deny what, sir? The truth?" He didn't answer. He just smiled small and walked away. That evening, I entered Chuka's room. He was sitting by the window, looking weak and lost. "Ngozi," he said quietly, "it has happened. Maybe it's time to step down." I sat beside him and took his hand. "No, you won't step down because of shame. You will face this with your head high. You have done more for this state than any man before you. One sickness cannot wipe that away." He smiled weakly. "You don't understand, Ngozi. People will never forgive a leader with this kind of sickness. They will say I'm cursed. They will say I was reckless. They will forget the good I did." I stood up and faced him. "Then let them talk. But we will not hide again. Do you hear me? This silence is killing you faster than the sickness itself." He looked at me for a long time, his eyes soft. "You are stronger than me," he whispered. That night, I went home to pick a few clothes. But the moment I stepped out of the car, journalists surrounded me like ants around sugar. "Madam, please, is it true the governor has HIV? Has he been unfaithful? Are you infected too?" Their questions stung me like hot pepper. I didn't answer any of them. I just pushed through the crowd, tears burning my eyes. Inside the house, the silence was heavy. The servants were whispering, pretending to sweep, but I could see the fear in their faces. I went to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and held my phone. I opened social media again. The insults were plenty. People that once praised my husband were now calling him names. I dropped the phone and looked up at the mirror. My face was swollen from crying. My heart was heavy. Then, quietly, I spoke to my reflection. "Ngozi, are you going to keep hiding like him, or will you do something about this?" I remembered what the doctor said. How many people die silently every year because of shame? I remembered how my husband had once said, "Nigeria is not ready to understand people with this sickness." Maybe that was true, but somebody had to start the change. By midnight, I had made up my mind. I would speak, not for the politicians, not even for myself, but for every person hiding in fear. I sat down and began to write my speech. The words came slowly, but they came from my heart. By morning, the paper was full of tears and truth. The storm had already broken, but I was ready to walk into it. The morning of the press conference came too quickly. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat by the window, holding the paper where I wrote my speech, reading it again and again. My heart was beating fast. I was scared, but I knew running away would be worse. When I got to the government house hall, the place was full already. Journalists, party members, even people from the national stations were there. Cameras everywhere. Some were whispering as I walked in. I could feel their eyes following me. I wore a simple black gown, no makeup, no fancy scarf. I wanted them to see me as I was, not the governor's wife, not the first lady, just a woman telling the truth. When I climbed the stage, I took a deep breath. For a few seconds, the whole hall was silent. I could hear the clicking of cameras, the hum of the microphone, and my own heartbeat. "My people," I began, my voice shaking a little. "You have all heard many things about my husband, Governor Chuka Okorie. Some true, some lies. Today, I will tell you the truth." I paused. I could feel hundreds of eyes staring. Some reporters already held their pens, ready to write whatever came next. "My husband," I said slowly, "has been living with HIV for some years." The whole hall gasped at once. The sound was loud, like thunder. But I continued before they could start murmuring. "He didn't hide it because he was wicked. He hid it because he was afraid. Afraid of shame. Afraid of how people would treat him. But sickness is not a crime. It is not a curse. And I will not let fear bury the truth any longer." Some reporters were already standing, taking pictures. I felt tears rising in my eyes, but I held them back. "This sickness does not change who he is," I said. "It does not remove the good he has done. If anything, it shows his strength, that even while carrying this heavy secret, he still worked for the people every day." The hall went quiet again. Nobody moved. For the first time, I saw something different in their eyes. Not mockery, but respect. When I finished and walked out of the hall, the sun outside was bright. Some people clapped softly. Others just stood, watching me. But deep in my heart, I felt light, like a chain had broken. Back in the hospital, Chuka was sitting up, watching the live broadcast on TV. When I entered, he turned to me with tears in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered. "You set me free." I held his hand. "No, my love. We did it." Days later, something strange began to happen. People started talking differently. Churches began to preach kindness instead of judgment. Schools started health talks about HIV. Even on radio, callers were saying, if our governor can speak up, why should we hide? The truth that almost destroyed us became the same truth that started healing others. One evening, weeks later, when Chuka was strong enough to walk again, we went outside together. The same people who once whispered behind our backs waved at us and smiled. Some even shouted, "We are proud of you." As we walked back inside, he turned to me and said, "Ngozi, I used to think power means hiding weakness, but now I see that real power is in facing the truth." I smiled and leaned on his shoulder. "And sometimes," I said softly, "truth is the only medicine that truly heals." The sun was setting, painting the sky orange. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because the truth was finally free. And that truth, our truth, had found its voice.